I believe I once told you of the magic in silent songs which can cast the singer to faraway lands, to create a sort of gateway, or speculums, as we call them, to a reality in parallel with our own. Everything in the land beyond a speculum has a bizarre hue to it, as though everything in that realm is moments away from flickering out of existence. An ethereal place, really. We've come to call it the Obscura, a place that seems to manifest just below our own plane of existence. Many people seem to think the Obscura is a superficial place. There are no rich veins of gold or rolling fields fit to sow crops. There are very few artifacts we can harvest from this land, and the cost of acquiring them is steep. Speculums have a few key limitations. First, they do not allow us to bring instruments through to the Obscura. We still do not understand this phenomenon. Many have speculated that they see God behind these things, that the Obscura is a place for trial and tribulation. By not bringing instruments through the gates, God is sending the message that we are to rely on Him instead of our own ingenuity. I have seen too many lose their lives in the wilds of the Obscura to believe a benevolent God would impose such dangerous restrictions on the realm, yet still grant us access. It seems to me that God is being shoved into matters that do not actually involve Him, but I digress. Even if we were to bring such instruments with us, the Obscura still remains dangerous enough as to make those efforts quite impotent. The next limitation is that we can't seem to control the destination of our speculums. Each performer seems to get their own destination in the Obscura assigned at birth, and the Obscura must be a vast place. Amongst all of the many thousands of musicians who have traveled there, not one has been able to find a pathway to another's speculum. This is made even more difficult due to the troublesome terrain. The whole landscape is covered in muddy bogs, snowy mountains, and deep oceans. Every mile traveled here is a laborious one. Despite the vastness of this expanse, the same flora and fauna seem to have spread all throughout. Creatures of the same species seem to be found near every speculum. Similar biomes are found, and all are similarly sparse in the resources they offer. And deep within this frontier, a savage conflict burns, a holy war that rages endlessly between angels and demons. And when the fighting is most desperate, the aggressors will often reach out to the foreigners in their realm to ask for help in turning the balance in the fighting. Oddly, in the Obscura, minstrels appear to be the only creatures capable of harnessing the magic in songs. Despite the lack of instruments, a minstrel will always have their voice. This makes them uniquely powerful in the realm. With their voices, they can influence the savage fighting in a direction of their choosing. To the natives, we are a scarce weapon, and will think twice before squandering such a resource. From atop their glorious golden kingdom in heaven, the Mummerites swoop down upon brilliantly white feathered wings. With a perfect physique and confident posture, they project in equal amounts grace and hubris. They adorn themselves with brilliant jewelry and extravagantly ornamented weapons, and each mounts a chilling stone mask upon their face. To date, no credible account of a Mummerite removing their mask has been recorded, leaving many to speculate that the Mummerites have nothing but an inky void behind their masks. Others believe that somehow the Mummerites centralize all of their flaws on their face and use their masks to hide away these insecurities. The truth is, we likely will never know. The Mummerites are an expansive civilization, considering themselves to be above all others, both literally and in metaphor. They see it as their divine duty to purge the surface of all blemishes, including the demons they so despise. They obsessively aspire for perfection. They have managed to construct glorious pillared castles in the sky, far out of reach of any minstrel who would hope to explore them. These fortresses are visible from leagues away, giving every minstrel a breathtaking vista when they first cross the threshold of their speculums. In contrast to the glittering Mummerites, the foul Umbragor stand as their opposition. The Umbragor have carved out deep underground complexes, far beneath the surface. Some of these chambers travel so far below the earth that they tap into magma-filled chasms. The heat here can be so extreme that a minstrel's skin would boil in seconds. And the vast array of labyrinthine corridors will disorient even the most experienced spelunker. Many who have traveled too deeply into these catacombs have never returned to the surface, and are presumed lost to time. The Umbragor dig these channels in no specific direction, as far as we can tell, and continue to carve out even deeper layers beneath the earth. They're well equipped to do so. They vary in size and shape, but most boast wicked claws, sharper than any saber. Their charred black skin cracks and boils, giving them the most unsightly appearance. And adorning every inch of skin are hideous scars in the shapes of frightening ruins. They are nocturnal creatures, emerging mostly at night to hunt and feed. And any wayward creature that encounters them will likely not notice until it is too late. They are hedonistic creatures, fornicating and brutalizing as they please. No one really knows when or why the fighting began. Even if you were to ask an Umbragor or a Mummerite directly, they will never give you a satisfactory answer. The Mummerites are convinced of a foul betrayal long ago, so severe that the only way the Umbragor can atone is with their own blood. The Umbragor simply seem to accept the Mummerites as enemies, and care not for a reason. They only strive to protect their dark domains so that they can slink back into them at dawn's first light. What's more, there has been much speculation as to the way the Obscura interfaces with the world above. Many seem to think that the goings-on in the overworld have a profound effect on the matters of the Obscura. When order is established above, many report the Mummerites as being victorious in their skirmishes. And when anarchy reigns, the Umbragor appear to have dominance. But the corollary could be the other way around. Perhaps it's a mixture of both. When the fighting between these two factions reaches a fever pitch, they are known to seek aid from the minstrels who happen across their battlefields. Each group will offer the minstrel a gift in exchange for their alliance. With their silver tongues, the Mummerites sing a promise of wealth, fame, and power. They speak of happiness most only can dream of. They will offer one of their stone masks in exchange for the minstrel's aid, an artifact that can cloak the wearer in a myriad of guises, producing a superficial facade of the minstrel's choosing. A trinket that seems more alluring in the shadow of the golden note, don't you think? The Umbragor, on the other hand, offer nothing but a crude obsidian dagger. Its edge is sharp enough to draw blood with the lightest contact. They will tersely explain that the weak should aspire to become stronger, that cut flesh heals into tougher scars. They will tell you that unless you fight, you must fear. The abyssal depths make good use of these daggers to perform their blood rituals. These blades seem to offer an amplification to the magics at play. Perhaps it's the deepness of the cut that magnifies the power in blood. You might be thinking to yourself right now, which of these factions is worth backing? As usual, the reality is a bit more complicated than you might think. When one of these factions gains too much power in a region, they will approach travelers with hostility instead of their normal attitude of appeasement. This conflict in the Obscura is one that has raged for an eternity. You will make no difference to the ultimate outcome. Further, it is a convenient conflict. Why settle for one gift when you can get two? But many would disagree with me on that point. Take this advice however you want. In my travels to the Obscura, I have labored to carve out a homestead, as many others do. From the exit of my speculum, I have painstakingly carved a path through the wilds to a nearby peak. There I have made a humble motte, entrenched in wooden and stone walls. Never assume you are alone in the Obscura, and pay particular attention to your defenses, I say. But it is here, upon this mountain fort, that I have established a relationship with both the local Mummerite monastery and Umbragor clan. When one battle line is faltering, I make an effort to equalize the force at play. It is a delicate political game to play. Both sides loathe me, but they recognize the role I play in their war games. I cannot take all of the credit for the construction of my feeble fortress. Sure, in the beginning I had to start by hauling stones and logs one by one up the mountainside. But I lack the strength or tools to bring heavier materials. In exchange for my help in conflicts, I have convinced the local Umbragors and Mummerites to aid me in the construction efforts. The Umbragor provided brute strength. With their aid, I have been able to construct ever more impressive infrastructure. For example, an aqueduct from a local mirrored lake to pipe water straight into my homestead. All creatures require water to survive, and the species here are no exception. It can cool the magma found in the Umbragor's warrens, cementing the walls in place. It feeds the vast clouds that keep the Mummerites' monasteries afloat. The cool water found in the Obscura seems to have a pristine nature to it, never found in nature in the overworld. Its purity provides minstrels with a clarity of thought, and is sometimes used exclusively to satisfy their thirst. The Mummerites brought their intellect to bear in matters of architecture and logistics. Their engineering prowess has allowed me to construct strong walls, sturdy roofs, and even the design of the aforementioned aqueduct. I suppose they have had endless eons to perfect their arts of construction. I seem to be fairly unique in this approach. While not unheard of, most of the minstrels I have talked with on this matter seem to favor leveraging the local wildlife to serve as beasts of burden, instead of demanding servitude from the local warring tribes. And when forced into picking a faction to back, most choose to favor the Mummerites. The mask appears more appealing than the dagger, I suppose. Many minstrels require multiple attempts to tame the strange beasts in the land. But due to the varied temperaments of the beasts, in the early attempts, most minstrels can only exert a fleeting control over them. However, with enough persistence, some minstrels will develop lifelong bonds with a handful of beasts. Either way, the labor they provide will lead to a permanent contribution in their constructions, provided the beast does not bring down an embankment in an enraged or ornery spat during their construction, an event all too common in my efforts. The beasts of the land seem to be of ancient lineages, even older than the Mummerites or Umbragors. Many species are known, and we seem to continue to find more. I've known some minstrels that have dedicated their life to chronicling these species, with no end in sight. Not only can they act as partners in your labors, but some of the ancient beasts will fiercely protect their masters from existential threats. And to some minstrels, they derive a deep joy in caring for another. Husbandry to any of the young and fragile beasts make an excellent outlet for this drive. As I said before, taming beasts is not exactly my forte, favoring instead the diplomatic efforts concerning the Mummerites and Umbragors. And when I was young, I had no desire for anything concerning the Obscura. There's a strange apathy that sets in when you consider the affairs of distant lands. Taming the wilds of the Obscura didn't have obvious consequences on the overworld, and the effort involved is monumental. But I found that in my negligence, I gave an opportunity for the creatures of this esoteric land to lash out at me through my own speculum. I now know that the Obscura is not a place you can turn your back on. Heed my warning well, listener. If you wish to master the art of music, the conquest of the Obscura is not an optional task. If you neglect it, it will have the capacity to ruin you. Master it, and you will forever have a haven in life. Juko, Ngoki Ra Ngomagko.